Hey guys, what's up? So, today I'm just gonna be creating a series, or I guess revisiting a series that I did a long time ago called Cosmos OS. Creating a creating an operating system using C Sharp, using Cosmos. And, yeah, so I guess the idea of this is I'm just gonna be creating my own operating system and bringing you guys along with me. It's just been something I've been wanting to do, and might as well record it. So, basically, to make your own operating system, there's a few things you're going to need. First of all, I'm assuming everyone has this, but maybe some people won't. So it's just Visual Studio 2019. I'm using Community because it's free and I'm not going to pay for it. So I'll include the link for this in a notepad, even though I'm pretty sure most of you have it. I don't use Visual Studio. I usually use Sharp Develop, even though it's outdated. So, I'll give y'all. Maybe some of you guys don't have it. So yeah, just install it here. I'm not actually going to install it on video because, well, it's really annoying to install this because you have to restart your computer and it takes like an hour, even if it doesn't change anything. But anyway, yeah, this is the link's up here. I'll include in the description. The other thing is the .NET Developer Pack. You could just install it clicking download right here. I'll also throw this link down in the description. In hindsight, you guys might think you don't have it, but I'm pretty sure all of you have it. If you have Visual Studio installed, I'm pretty sure it comes with it. I'm not sure though. But yeah, just give it an install, check it out. Maybe you don't have it, who knows. Another thing that you're gonna need is, you don't need this to actually make the operating system. You need it to test it, and all it is Vmware Workstation 16 player. The download link is right here. It's also free. Or I don't know. It says try, but I got it for free, so I'm not really sure what. Commercial organizations require commercial licenses. Well, I'm assuming none of you guys are commercial organizations, so it's gonna be free for y'all. And finally, the actual quote construction kit is Cosmos OS. This is what we're going to be using. Also, going to include a link for this in the description. All you want to do once you're on here, go to releases, just click on that, and scroll down to the latest user kit. You can just download it right here. It's so straightforward, guys. It's really straightforward. All you gotta do, press OK. I don't want to install it because it takes like 4 minutes, but really all you do is press OK. And it might hang a little bit when the progress bar is 100%, but it's actually doing something in the background, so just wait like a few minutes. Be patient, it's gonna install most likely. And while you're installing it, make sure you got your Visual Studio closed. But once it's all installed, you can open up your Visual Studio, and you might notice that when you create a new project, you're gonna see it says Cosmos kernel up here. Or like Cosmos kernel. And you wanna click the Cosmos kernel that says C Sharp, and mine's not. Oh, it's right here. Click the Cosmos kernel that says C Sharp. I doubt it's gonna be at the bottom for you guys. I'm not sure why mine is. But anyway, it's also on my recent projects template. But really, all you want to do is just click Cosmos kernel C Sharp. Next. And then just name it whatever you want. I'm gonna just call it PracticeOS because just practicing. And as you can see, this isn't. If you guys look at my cursor, there's like an exclamation mark here. It's the wrong symbol. If I right click this and go into my properties, it doesn't say anything about Cosmos over here. When that happens to you, if it does, restart Visual Studio. That'll, and then open up your project. And as you can see now, you got the Cosmos icon, and you got the Cosmos in your properties. So, believe it or not, you're done. You could give it a test. You could debug it. And this is going to take a while. Can I edit stuff while it's running? Yeah. I'm not doing anything significant. I'm just saying this is how I like it. The syntax how I like it. Just spacing it out how I like it. And yeah, it is going to take a while to debug on the first time around. 30 seconds for that first little bit. Oh wait, that's not 30 seconds. That's no, that is 30 seconds. But it shouldn't take much longer here. Another 15 seconds. I'm guessing it's just probably gonna take around 1 minute to 2 minutes for you guys. One thing you gotta remember is my computer's not the best, but it shouldn't take that long. But still give it a debug so that you can make sure that it's all working. There's a lot of support for Cosmos, so if it's not working, you could leave a question on the GitHub or something. And as you can see, it's going to open the Vmware Workstation player that you installed earlier, and you've literally got an operating system running without doing anything aside from installing it. It's just writing these 5 lines of code, and just to show you guys it's functional. It works, as you can see. And you could right click on your project where it says PracticeOS and click on Open Folder in File Explorer. And you don't have to do this. You also don't have to go to the properties as I did earlier, but I'm just showing you guys. If you just go into your Bing debug, you'll see that you got your .iso. And I'm assuming most of you know what .iso is. But if you don't, I'll show you guys right now. File, new virtual machine. Excuse me. And then, as you can see, you have the option to create a virtual machine using a .iso. And then you could just select your .iso. So it's a working operating system. If I do that, it's not gonna work because it's gonna expect it to be debugging because we've just debugged with it, and you'll understand what I mean in a second. This is just gonna hang here because it's waiting for the debugger. But just to show you guys, this is really an operating system. If you want to like get it to run without the debugger, all you gotta do is go back into your right click your PracticeOS properties, go to Cosmos, debug, and just disable this. And it's literally just gonna be a normal .iso operating system. But obviously we don't want it to just do this, so we're just gonna get rid of this. And you could just write whatever you want here. Well, I take it back. You could write a lot of things that you want. A lot of these using imports don't get supported. So, you know, you have some restrictions, but you could write just console right line. No, just for instance, I'll say, welcome to PracticeOS, the practice operating system. yeah, so as you can see, I just write whatever I want, really. And just to start off, what I'm going to do is create a command system. And I'm going to be making this as organized as possible, making this entire operating system as organized as possible. Because operating systems are very volatile, you know, if you make one, because it's not perfect. We're using C# to make an operating system, which is especially difficult. It's not especially difficult for us, it's especially difficult for whoever is making Cosmos. It's very hard. I appreciate the work that they put into it. But anyway, I'm gonna just create a folder, and all I'm gonna do, I'm gonna see if I could, yeah, I'm just gonna right click on PracticeOS right here, and then just, or the solution, and then add a new folder, or shit, on the PracticeOS, and add a new folder, and all I'm gonna do in this folder is just call it commands, because we're just gonna be creating commands. And in this, what we're gonna do is just create a new item again in the folder this time, not PracticeOS, in the folder, and just call it command. So I'm gonna quickly show you guys what I mean by command. If I go open command prompt, what would a command be? So for example, a command could be like, let me see if this is a command. No, that's not. Okay, there you go. So echo is a command. As you can see, I'm typing echo, it's giving me a response. Echo is on. And in a command, there's something like arguments. So if I write a different command like task kill, I don't actually have any tasks to kill. So, but you know, you can have your arguments f, im, and all that does is indicate that I want to kill a bunch of tasks. And then another argument could be the task name that you want, so chrome.exe, and there you go. And that's your response. And now, and then what it did is killed my Chrome. I don't know if you guys caught that, but that's what it did. So as you can see, you've got the name of the command, the arguments, its response, and its functionality. So those are the things that we're going to implement. And I'm just going to start off by making this class just a public class command. And inside our class, all we're going to do is give it the name. So we're going to make it public so anyone can read it. And we're going to make it read only, because after it's defined, you're not going to want to change it. Why would you want to change the name after it's defined? That would, it's just not something you need or would want. Obviously, it's going to be a string. The name is going to be a string. We're just going to call it name, and all that is signifying is, for example, echo is the name, task kill is the name of the command. And you're going to want to be able to input this command somehow. So what we're going to do is create a constructor just by public command. And in here, we're just going to ask for the name. And we're going to go ahead and set this.name to name. So all we're doing by this is selecting this. And this right here is this. So we're just setting this to this, to whatever the user inputs, sort of what we input for the name. I'm also just going to put it on one line because that's all we're going to need. And the next thing we're going to want to do is the functionality. So we're going to create a public virtual. Just means it could be it just means that it's not actually meant to be run. It's like supposed to be overridden. So we're just going to call it a public virtual void to indicate the method. And then we'll call it execute, run, you know, whatever you guys want. Because it's just whatever you think is appropriate for actually running the command. And obviously you're going to want to run the command with arguments. So for instance, in this task kill command, My arguments were -f, -im, and chrome.exe. So those could be all stored in an array. So for instance, it would be an array of a length of 3 that contains -f, -im, and chrome.exe. We'll just call it args. You call it arguments, parameters, whatever, params. You know, you're making your own operating system, guys, so just make it comfortable to you. But also, obviously, make sure that you can still follow the tutorial. So don't go out of your comfort zone, even though you should be comfortable in C# already. Or at least somewhat, guys, at least somewhat. You're supposed to be completely comfortable in whatever language you make your operating system in. You're supposed to know the ins and outs, as they call it, but you know, it's fun. So if you don't, then it's whatever. But don't worry, I'm a professional. I'll help you guys. But the other thing that we're missing from our command interface here is the response. So how is the user going to get a response? Well, when you run the command, that's when you get the response. So what do you think we should do? Well, this is the method we use to run the command, and we're going to want to give it a return value, and the response is going to be a string. And it's going to yell at me because it wants me to return something. We're just going to make it empty for now, because this is just the interface. It's not actually a command, it's just what all the commands are going to be based on. This is going to be the structure of every command. So we're not going to actually give it a response. We're just going to make it empty so it doesn't yell at us. And we're also going to want a command manager. This is just where you register all the commands you've made. So we're just going to right click our folder here, add new item, as we did before. This one's just going to call it command manager. I'm just going to set this up how I like it. And in the command manager, we're just going to give it we're going to give it a list of the commands, public or private list command. So we're just making a list of commands. Pretty straightforward. We're using that in system.collections.generic. I'm really glad it's supported. I love lists. I hate arrays. And we're just gonna give it commands, because it's all it is commands. And we're gonna want to initialize it, so we're gonna initialize it in the constructor. No need to take any arguments for the constructor. This.commands, and we're gonna just, that's how we're accessing it, obviously. I know I might be explaining the basics, guys, but I'm just trying to find a common ground with everybody, because I'm sure everyone watching this video is from a different skill level. Some people are gonna appreciate me explaining everything. But anyway, what we're gonna set it to equals to set it to. We're gonna make a new list, and this right here is fine, but it's a good practice to, if you know how many commands you're gonna have or how big your list is gonna be, to set the capacity. So we're gonna have one command today. That's what my goal is, to create one command. And that's not something that's set in stone. We could just change it later. And it doesn't mean that if I have a second command and I accidentally leave this at 1, it's not gonna break. It's just a good practice, because it's if you don't do this, then it's gonna have to resize itself every time that you add something new. It's gonna have to expand its capacity, use a little bit. It's gonna be a little bit slower. It's not noticeable, but it's, you know, it's a good practice, because it's not noticeable how much time it's gonna save. But just do it, because if you eventually end up with something like this in a loop, you probably won't, but it's just a good practice. And now what we're gonna do is we're gonna take the input of the user and manage it, or like just see what, just take the input from the user, whatever the user types in. We're going to detect if they typed in a command. And the way we do that is we're going to say public, we're going to process it, that's the word I was looking for. And we're not actually going to display the response here yet, so I'm going to make this a public string so that we can go ahead and move it down even more. Just pass the response along. We're just going to pass the response here to here, and then eventually we're going to print it in our kernel. So that's the only reason I'm making this a string. And process input is just going to be the method name. And then we're just going to make the string input. And what the string input is going to contain, for example, just using this command I did, for example, the string input will contain taskkill f.im.exe. That's going to be what's contained in string input. But obviously it's not going to be that because we're not on Windows. It's going to be whatever commands we make. But yeah, that's just an example on Windows. And so obviously to detect which command we are accessing, we're going to want this first thing here. And how do we do that? Well, that's easy. What you want to do is make string array args, or split. We're just going to call it split. And what we're going to do is just take the input and split it by a space character. And what this is going to do is going to split it by a space character, so every single thing in between the spaces is going to be in its own string. And so again, assuming that this is our input, now that we've split it, this is going to be a string that contains, this is going to be an array that contains 4 strings. Taskkill -f -im and from.exe. These are going to be the 4 strings that are in this split. Hopefully that makes sense, guys. And that's weird that it never does that. I accidentally pressed something, but anyway, now what we want to do is get this, because this is actually the command name, and that's called the label generally. You call it command name, whatever you guys are comfortable with, as I said. And all it is going to be the first thing in split. So we do that just by checking the 0 thing, because it starts at 0, so we check the 0th thing. And that's going to, this now label is going to be equal to taskkill. And because if I just quickly make this again, this would be 0, this would be 1, this would be 2, this would be 3. So we're getting the 0 thing by selecting 0 right there, and it's going to be taskkill. And I'm just going to get rid of all that because it's just comments, we don't really need it. Hope you guys at least get the gist of it. But anyway, what we're going to be doing now is checking if the user input an actual command. So how do we do this? Well, we're going to loop through every single command. And we store our commands right up here. So the way we access that is just saying this.commands. For each command in our commands, which is nothing right now, but we're going to add some in the future, check if the name of the command is equal to the label that the user put in. So if there's a command that has the name that the user's putting in, then what are we going to want to do with it? We're going to want to run the command. And right now, it's expecting arguments. the way we're going to do that is create string array arguments. And I'll just make it a list. I'll make it a list. Just because this is how I like to do things. I really like lists. I forget if I said that earlier, but I love lists. And we're just going to make a new list. And all you're going to want to do is say, for every string s in the split, we're going to create a counter. And the way we do this, we're just going to call it, create an int counter equals 0, and increase it. And basically, as long as the counter is not 0, then add the string. So this is really confusing. I feel like I did a terrible job explaining it. But basically, I'm not going to really go into depth on this because if you don't understand it, it's going to take a while to explain it, and there's other people who do understand it. So essentially, what I'm doing here is taking every single string in the split here that we made earlier apart from the label, apart from the first argument. And that will, apart from the first, the name of the command. And that's going to leave us with the -f-im-chrome.exe. So basically everything apart from the label. And it's easy to convert it to an array. All you want to do to pass the arguments over to the execute here, take the arguments list we made, and it has a handy method to array. I'm not entirely sure if it's supported, so I'm just gonna build this. Or whoops. I didn't notice that there was an error here. Just ignore what I'm doing right here. I'm just putting that down so it will compile. Hopefully this doesn't take too long, but in the meantime, I'll talk about the next thing we're doing. And the next thing we're doing is, as you remember, on the execute, as you probably remember, in the execute command here, it returned a response. So simply, so what we want to do is pass the response down here, because as I said earlier, we're not actually displaying the response here. We're going to display it in our kernel, which is this here. So we're going to want to pass it down. And all we want to do is just, to pass down, is return it again. So now the response goes from here to here, and then eventually we're going to write it in the kernel. And hopefully that makes sense. Alright, as you can see, the build succeeded. The reason that I had to test if this was supported is because a lot of things in Cosmos aren't supported. A lot of the things in your handy namespaces that you usually use aren't supported because obviously we're not on Windows anymore, so it's not going to have support for everything. What they have to do, basically, to my knowledge, actually, this is something that I'm not 100% sure in, but to the extent of my knowledge, what they have to do is rewrite the actual entire namespaces and write the command, or write the handy methods that you've become so accustomed to using. They rewrite it, and some of them they didn't rewrite, they weren't able to, so it's not supported and it won't work. So you gotta really be careful about what you use, what namespaces you import up here, but so far we're good. And now, say there's a situation where the user inputs the command, this for example. Obviously that's not a real command. Well, what's going to happen is going to loop through this every single time, and there's not a command that has this name. So this entire loop is basically going to get skipped. And when it gets skipped, that means that there was no command with that name. So down here, our response, when we're returning, whenever it return, that's just the response. The response is now going to be your command, and then we're going to tell the user what their command is. Does not exist. And now we're going to go into the commands again and add an actual command. We're actually going to add a command. And I'm going to right click on my folder, add item, class, as we did twice already. And this command is just going to be called help. Oops. So the command we're going to be making is a help command. And it's just going to give us information on commands and whatnot. But how do we make a command? Well, obviously, if I go to my command manager and I try to add our help command to our commands, it's going to tell me it's not a command, it's just your help class. Well, how do we make an instance of a command? Basically, what you want to do is go up to your class and put down a colon. And now, whatever class you write after this colon, your class is going to inherit it. So we're going to write command, and command is just the class we made over here. And now it's going to inherit the command class. So basically, help is now a command because I put that there. And it's going to give me an error, and that's because we haven't actually written down the attributes yet. It's expecting attributes like a name, execute, and stuff. But we haven't actually written it down, and it's expecting it because it's a command. It doesn't have the attributes of a command, so it's giving us an error. Well, the first thing we want to do is let the user set a name to the command. We're going to do that in the constructor. And we're going to ask the user for a name. Now, what you may be wondering is how are we going to pass it to the command constructor? Because in the command constructor, that's where the name actually gets set. Well, what you want to do, go back to your help. You want to put your colon again. And now, what we're going to write down is the keyword base. And whenever I write base, it's just referring to our parent, and our parent is command. So we're going to call the base constructor name. And I'm just going to put, I'm going to leave that, put that right there and just leave it empty. Because we don't have to do anything extra. And basically, what we're doing is accepting a string name and passing it over to our base. And this is our base constructor. And what this is doing is just setting the name to whatever we want it to. We'll set it later. So now that we've set the name of our command, or like we've set up the name for our command, the other thing we're going to want to do is set up the response and what the command actually does. So the way we're going to do that is override the execute void the execute function method that we made earlier. And the reason we're overriding it is so that, as you guys remember, it does nothing. It literally does nothing apart from return an empty string. And that's not what our command is going to do. It's actually going to do something. So, as you can see, Visual Studio is trying to get me to make it return the base, like what the base would normally do. But we don't want to do that because the base does nothing. So we're going to just get rid of that. And we're going to say return. And then we're just going to write down a response. So we don't actually have to make it do anything. But I could make it do something. I could write console write line, do something. And it would run, do something. But this is just a help command. We don't want it to actually do anything. We just want it to tell the user what we're doing. So we're going to say your welcome to PracticeOS help command. PracticeOS version is 1.0. The PracticeOS version is 1.0. The only command currently is help. And that's going to be the response. Now, our command is done. We've given it a name, response, whatever. But we need to register it. And all we want to do to register it is go back to our command manager, go to the constructor, and say this.commands.add new help. And now, since help is an actual instance of a command, it'll work. Now we just want to give it a name, because if you guys remember, in the constructor it expects a name, and this is just going to be, for example, task kill would be a name. We're just going to make ours help. And let's go back to our kernel now. Everything is set up. All we have to do is actually make it work. So in our before run, this only runs once. This is where you define all your variables, you initialize everything. So what you want to do is say private commands manager, or first of all, actually, we have to import our namespace. So mine is just called PracticeOS. I don't know where you guys named yours, and then wherever you named yours, and then you put a dot, and then you type commands, and then that's how we're gonna import our commands, that classes that we made. And now go back here, and we're gonna make a private command manager. As you can see, it's now coming up, and we'll just call it command manager. Now, what we're gonna do is say, actually, initialize it. Just by selecting it and just creating and just running the constructor, creating a new instance of it, and all it's gonna do is add in the help command that we made earlier. Now, we actually want the user's input to get processed. So this is right now we're going to go to the run void, and what run is, it gets looped. As you can see, it's the main kernel loop. It gets looped, and we're gonna want, just like this is getting looped right now. As you can see, if I type something in, it's getting looped. It's going back and letting me do another command. It's not just stopping. So all we do is, and what we're gonna also want to do in this loop is write down the response. So we're gonna create a string to store the response. And the way we're gonna do that is go ahead and select our command manager, and we made a method called process input. I'll just show you guys really quick. This is this method right here. And as you can see, it's expecting a string input, and the way we get input from a user, this is you guys should know this. So if anyone here is here to learn, then pause the video and go take a guess at this yourself, because it is pretty easy. But to get input from a user, you do console.readline, and if you did something like this, string input equals console.readline, and you put input in there, that's the exact same thing. So yeah. And now we're gonna actually want to write the response. So if you guys remember, we didn't actually write the response. We passed it down twice until we finally passed it down in the return value of process input. And here we stored the return value of process input in response. So now we're going to want to write the response. And yeah, we're done. So let's test it, because anything can go wrong. When you're writing with Cosmos, literally anything can go wrong. Anything completely unexpected. It could even work completely fine on Windows. It can go wrong. And while this is loading, I might as well tell you guys, during this series, I'm kind of doing this just off the rip. Like, I'm not reading off a script or anything. So something could seriously go wrong, and then it's gonna be like awkward me trying to figure it out. But I'm gonna try to stick to things in my comfort zone, so that and maybe like just do some research on it beforehand to make sure that I can easily recover from anything that doesn't work. But anyway, hopefully that this all came together to you guys. Maybe you didn't understand while I was writing it, but hopefully it came together. I don't think this is too complicated. When you're writing an operating system, you kind of want at least some kind of C# knowledge. I mean, you're supposed to know the ins and outs, as they call it, of your programming language. But it's fun to do, so I don't blame anyone if they just want to make an operating system. But as you can see, it says welcome to PracticeOS, the practice operating system. And over here, that's just what we wrote here. And now it's expecting a response. Right here, it's hanging on console.readline. So we're gonna write help because that's the command we made. And as you can see, it says welcome to PracticeOS help command. And now I'm gonna ask you guys to take a gander. What's gonna happen if I type something that doesn't exist? Your command does not exist. Now where does this happen? You go to the command manager. Just to help you guys understand, the string label that I defined up here, right now, if I type in, like sum for example, let's say it's equal to sum, because this is the label, so it's equal to sum. And ignore the squiggly lines, it's just because I'm debugging. Is equal to sum. So what it does is it loops through every single command we have, and it checks if the name is equal to sum, but it doesn't. So it never executes a command, and instead it skips down here and says your command sum does not exist. And basically the only command we have right now is help, and this right here is where we define the name. So for example, if I named this something else, like something, and I run it, whoops, I'll close out of this as well. And this is gonna take a while, but now, even though the class name is help, that means nothing. Like I could name this class name, for example, this, and as long as this is called something, it will still work if I type in something. This is nothing. The actual class name help, it means nothing. All it is it looks good, it makes it easy to understand. For all I care, you could call it help command. That could be easier to understand. I'm not even saying that. I'm not even discouraging that. That's honestly probably like, in hindsight, that's probably a better thing to name the class for a lot of people. So if you want to name your class help command, it'll still work fine. You won't actually have the right in help command in your console. You could, and I'm gonna demonstrate this right now. And the class name is help, but I made the name something. So if I write in something, as you can see, it executes the help command, and if I write in help, it doesn't exist. And this is case sensitive, guys, but that's not hard to fix. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed the first episode. Hopefully you guys were able to catch on pretty easy, figure out at least the gist of things. And I understand this isn't too much, it's just the very basics. I'm just creating the structure of the operating system. We're going to get to more advanced things later. But yeah, hopefully you guys got your operating systems running. I respond to every comment almost immediately, so just as long as I'm not asleep. So yeah, just if you have any questions, just comment. I really will respond. I even respond on my like 3-year-old videos. So I'll see you guys later in the next episode, hopefully. Bye.